Hey everyone, my name is Smyrke and I'm the founder and lead product engineer at EV Assist. Today I am joined by Tom Neser, strategic partner and advisor to the platform. It's great to have you here, Tom.
Great. Hey, look, it's great to be here, and I'm really excited about being involved with EV Assist. And as a strategic partner, it's unusual for me to be in that role because I'm a clinical psychologist by background with a strong interest in how technological changes are affecting the practice of psychology in the present, and also how we can actually leverage AI to improve the quality of what we're doing, not only as psychologists, but as counselors, psychotherapists, the whole caboodle in effect.
Awesome. Tom came aboard EV Assist about 2 months ago, and since then he's played a key role in helping shape EV into not just a powerful tool, but one that is deeply ethical and genuinely useful for therapists in the real world. Today we're going to do a QA with Tom to hear more about what drives Tom, why he's passionate about AI, and how he sees it transforming the therapeutic space. So to kick us off, Tom, what first sparked your interest in using AI in therapy?
Right. Well, I think the key thing here is that whether we like it or not, and certainly as clinicians, we tend to be quite conservative usually about getting involved with AI. The key thing here is that it's going to make a huge difference to how we practice as well as how our clients relate to us in the foreseeable future. And as I'm looking at it, I think it's better to be aware of the strengths, the weaknesses of AI, and to come into it in an informed way. And what I really like is EV Assist seems to me to be one of the safer ways of being able to be involved.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like it or not, AI is going to reshape the way that every profession works, and that includes therapy. As a developer, I use it every single day. It helps me write cleaner code faster, and it boosts my productivity in a way that just wasn't possible a few years ago. It's not a question of if we use it, but how we choose to use it. AI is everywhere we look these days, and that's what makes EV so exciting, because we're building something that puts ethics and real-world practicality front and center, so clinicians can confidently use it in a safe way and harness the power of AI to support their work.
And from my side, I think one of the interesting points from a clinical side is that AI brings with it the ability to democratize clinical knowledge. And what I mean by that is that it means that I can get instant access to the wealth of knowledge in virtually any area of psychology and use that to assess and empower my own work and to deepen my own skills. And that's stunning and exciting from my point of view.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. The idea of democratizing clinical knowledge is just so powerful. I see that same pattern arising across so many fields. In my field as a developer especially, what used to take me hours of digging through Stack Overflow, now I can just make in minutes. I mean, now I can ask AI for best practices and find solutions to things that honestly would have taken so much longer to consult with my peers or to search through forums for those niche little topics. But yeah, it's not about speed per se. It's also about improving the quality that we produce. And I think that's the opportunity for therapists and other professions too. It's not about replacing that expertise, but rather amplifying it. So on that note, Tom, let's dig into something that I know you're passionate about, and how can therapists use AI to better their assessments, and how can it support a more evidence-based judgment?
Great. Okay, look, a couple of things. Probably the single biggest way that AI and not least of all AI programs such as EV Assist can be of help is that it can deepen our access to a knowledge base. And the specific way that really helps us within EV Assist is I can bring in, let's say I get a new referral, and I get with that referral, and sometimes with some clients, I might get 200 pages of information, particularly if that client's been around for a while, and I'm asked to do an assessment in a specific area. And suddenly what I can do is I can interact with EV Assist around this whole 200 pages, ask it questions about specific parts of that 200 pages. I might say, in 2020, there was a specific assessment done by a psychologist. Can you help me understand what the key points were? What were the diagnoses? And what stood out from the history? And in that sense, it becomes a huge time saver. And I've a silly story since you and I last chatted. I had a very distraught psychologist get hold of me saying he'd just spent 5 hours trawling through 150 pages of notes And then he'd managed to delete his file, which had summarized all of this. And part of me wanted to say to him, look, why weren't you using something like EV Assist anyway? Because that way it's in the system, it's saved, and it's safely saved. So things like that. I think also the ability to interact with EV Assist, to create homework for clients, to interact to know what the client's giving us feedback, and to integrate that into my work, to take maybe a transcript from EV Assist, feed that back into the system and say, essentially summarize this whole transcript from a CBT perspective or an IFS perspective or a psychodynamic perspective. At that point, it becomes really exciting because most of us don't have the time or the opportunity to really get into that kind of detail with our clients. And I think a recent update of yours, I looked at that and I thought, oh God, I can't wait to try this, because you said you're moving your AI discussion away from just being limited to PDFs to include previous sessions. And that kind of thing is just so great. So there's a long answer, but it gives a good overview of why I'm excited and why I'm wanting to be involved with supporting EV Assist, actually, because the other side is I'm saying to people, look, get in now, because you'll be able, through your feedback, you'll be able to make sure that the end result of what we're using is tailor-made to our needs.
Totally. And I'm so excited that you're excited about the multi-context chat. That's an absolute game changer. I mean, you can chat with your sessions, you can chat with your documents, you can put them all in one to ask really impactful questions on your client's journey. So yeah, that's awesome stuff. And yeah, thanks for all the plugs on the features. That's great. Anyways, Tom, so on that note, what do you think people often misunderstand about AI, and what do you think they fear about it?
The biggest levels or areas of concern that I meet is, one is privacy, because that's the biggest thing that's bandied around. How private is client information, and will it be used to train future LLMs? That's probably the biggest one. The next one is whatever AI feeds back to me is going to suffer from hallucinations. And the third thing that's more of a current issue is, I'm being told I can't use it. So I don't want to get involved with it if it's just going to be ripped away from me. And I think that each of those 3 points is in a process of radical change. Certainly, EV Assist takes account of two of them. That's the privacy and also the hallucinations. So I think that's good. And certainly the upcoming models of AI, the GPTs that are due to be released in July, sound like it's going to be a whole new level of genuine intelligence being brought to bear to reflect alongside us. And what I like in terms of the concerns of people's fear is, I don't have to worry about stupid questions with AI. I can ask the most superficial or beginner question, and I do. I'm very experienced in some areas of psychology, but not in others. And I can come with confidence into a totally new area and say, look, I don't even know what this term means, and I'll get it fed back to me in a way that I can understand, and it can also be personalized to exactly what I'm working on, which is good. So there's a really straightforward and heartfelt answer about the fears.
Nice. I'm so glad that you brought up the privacy issues as being one of the main concerns, as well as the hallucinations. So with the privacy, this is why platforms like EBS exist, and this is what we do, and this is kind of the value that we bring to the proposition, I guess, is we're able to pay those enterprise level plans where we can have an ongoing relationship with an LLM provider so that they don't train on your data. And furthermore, we know we're dealing with transcripts, we know we're dealing with documents, that contain sensitive personal information. So what we do is we run some code over the top of those documents, over those transcripts, and every time they get sent through to the AI, they've already had all the PII redacted within them, and that adds just that extra level of confidence. So one, they're not training on your data, and two, we have that information redacted, which is great. In terms of the hallucinations, that's just another setting, really. So you can tell your AI, hey, I don't want you to make any hallucinations, which we've done. We give the AI a system prompt, and we tell it some system prompt, and we tell it, you are a CBT therapist, and you cannot hallucinate. Please stick to the transcript, stick to the document, only answer with whatever's in the document or the transcript. Don't make things up. And this is just another setting which you can control.
That's cool. And I think in terms of my third point, where I said, oh, I'm being told I can't use it, I think that that's a little bit of a red herring in the sense that, for example, some of the groups that are saying to people don't use it, Ministry of Health, for one, is in fact developing their own AI to use it. And I think I can understand a concern, let's say, from groups like ACC, that they don't want reports written purely by AI. Just coincidentally, one of the things that I like about Evie in this regard is when it's going through a transcript, it specifically stops and says to the user, check that this is accurate. And that might seem quite mundane to you, but it's a big thing for us on the other side of the clinical divide, that is forcing us to engage and to check that it is accurate.
Yeah, that was very important when we're developing EV Assist. We know that ACC doesn't want people to just blindly trust what LLM models throw at them as an answer. So we force the user to read through what's being produced and verify it. So they have to go through a process where they click next, read, next, read, next, read, and then eventually they get to a button that says, I verify these nodes, I trust these nodes, and then it marks a timestamp and the fact that they're verified, just so that we can prove that people are still paying attention and working alongside the AI, not relying on it. Cool. Well, anyways, we'll move on to question 4 there. So, Tom, can you share a time where you've used AI to help you uncover something that you might have missed during a clinical assessment?
I think the first thing that jumps to mind is that I remember when I first started using AI, I had a particularly complex client and I ran my assessment notes through AI and started to discover a little bit more about the art of prompting. In the process, became awed, would be the best word, about how it was able to identify key areas. But I then got curious and I fed back in and I said, now taking, these comments you've made and my own notes, give me a sound summary of the key issues from a CBT perspective. And then I asked her to redo it from a psychodynamic perspective, and I think a third one as well. And looking at the 3 very different answers I got, I had an insight into this client that I would never have had, even though I'm a reasonably experienced psychologist as I am. I thought that be able to see those different perspectives as if a reasonably expert person from that school of psychology had commented and then saying to it, taking all these into a point, what are key areas that I should look at into the future, and also what are possible problems that might come up. And I was surprised that AI was able to predict possible challenges that would come up in therapy. So that was probably one of the biggest areas of awe that I had.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, to get that kind of multi-dimensional insight in just minutes, that's something we've never really seen before we've had access to AI.
It's those different perspectives that are really powerful. And of course, in Evie, you can do that on a session-by-session basis.
And like you said, it's not really just the surface level stuff that it's covering here. It's rich, very informed perspectives that you would get from experts, and it genuinely shapes how you think about a client. What strikes me is how this isn't really about AI doing the therapy per se. It's about creating a kind of collaborative intelligence where the psychologist remains firmly in the driver's seat and AI is your co-pilot, hence why Microsoft named it Copilot, I guess. But this is what makes it really exciting, I guess, and safe when it's done right. And it's how Evie can now do this on a session-by-session basis, which everyone's been asking for, and why I added in that sort of multi-contextual, multi-session chat. And it's crazy how fast the space is really evolving. So with all that in mind, Tom, where do you see this heading next? What kind of tools do you think that psychologists will be using day to day, say in the next 3 to 5 years?
Psychology, psychotherapy. Look, it's going to be a scary time of change for clinicians generally, and I say clinicians because it's much wider than just psychologists. Someone made a comment to me, in fact, one of the people working with AI, that AI doesn't just help us do our existing work better. It totally changes the paradigm of how we work. Within the next 3 to 5 years, I think we'll be moving from our current use of AI, which is trying to help us to be better clinicians. And I think what we'll be seeing coming in is, or will be rather, new forms of therapy that involve us working alongside AI. It'll be me as a co-therapist or AI as a co-therapist to me, working with a client. And that process will start quite early, that AI might well be given a contact by me of someone who's coming to see me. AI will contact that person, ask them to complete some initial questionnaires, and will then give me a summary of issues that come out of those questionnaires. And then I might be able to work with the client, and if I let my imagination run wild, have AI pop into the conversation. If I'm seeing someone live, my laptop's next to me, and AI will be saying to me something like, I wonder if we can't explore a little bit more in terms of this area that seems to be troubling John. And we'll be getting this interactive way. And already what's happening is clients themselves are changing how they work. And I'd say there's very few clinicians in the country at this stage that haven't had a client say to them, I went online to ChatGPT or something and talked to it about my problems. And I had one person say to me, I couldn't sleep. And at 2 a.m. in the morning, I had an hour-long conversation with AI. And it was really helpful. And and we as clinicians are going to have to adapt to there being AI therapists out there that will be working separately from us. And I think another change that'll be coming in that I'm a little bit less comfortable with is that there's a very high probability that in 3 to 5 years, we'll be having AI therapists dealing with initial meetings with people and only passing on more complex cases to the clinicians.
Yeah, and we're already seeing glimpses of that future. I remember back in even in 2019, I tried out Wobot and it was clear that AI could already offer meaningful supportive interactions.
Oh, long before that, in the 90s, there was Eliza, which was just a really simple interactional app that taught reflection, if you like. So it goes back 40 years.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's incredible, really, how far we've come. From using something like Eliza to now having LLMs trained specifically for therapeutic use. Some of these new models are being developed with ethical constraints, psychological frameworks,
I'm starting to hear that as well. Yes.
and safeguards built in from the start. We're not just building more powerful tools, but we're building them for a specific use case, more thoughtful ones that aim to support the real therapeutic outcomes and make those benefits broadly available.
Yes. I think that there is going to be options for us to use Llama or Llama for downloadable AIs that we can train specifically for our own use, that will be willing to be more challenging, willing to highlight particular points and deal with our natural tendency. We don't really always want to talk about what's most threatening to us. And having a wise way of doing that currently is a clinician's advantage over AI. But I think that's within the next 12 months, we're going to be seeing that particular wall tumble.
Yeah, and that's a real need. There simply aren't enough therapists for the growing demand of patients, and these smarter and more targeted AI assisted tools means that we don't have to leave people behind, whether it's self guided therapy, AI assisted assessments, or simply doing a bit of a triage before passing on a client to a human therapist. We now have a chance to reach people for a lower cost, removing those barriers to therapy, those traditional barriers of cost, resource, time that have traditionally stopped people from going to therapy. And I think that's huge and a real benefit for humankind, one that we simply can't ignore. I think that the advantages and the opportunities here are just massive, and it would be a real shame if other issues that are stopping people from trying AI in therapy would stop that. Okay, Tom, so we're just going to end the Q&A there and just go into a little quickfire session. Can you give me one word to describe AI's potential in psychology?
Inspiring. I think it's definitely it's inspiring. It's challenging too, would be another one word, because it's interesting enough, since I've been using AI uh, over the last 12 months, I think my own personal ability with clients, even when AI is not involved, has improved by 20, 30%. And that's one of the things that I find inspiring, is that, my God, I've been a therapist for many years, but this is helping me become even better.
As a technologist, it's just very exciting. So then, okay, on to the next question. What should we be excited about for the next 12 months of EV?
I'm really looking forward to maybe getting EV Assist to add a new section in where I can run a session past EV Assist and get a more in-depth analysis of how I've done, almost as if EV Assist is supervising me. And I can't afford supervision for every session of every client. I'm lucky to get it, a couple of times a month. So it averages out at maybe 1 in 20 sessions, 1 hour of supervision for 20 hours of client work. But AI is making possible, an EV, I'm hoping, will make possible being able to get more feedback more quickly, more in depth than a supervisor would give. And that's a bit threatening to me, because most of my work is as a supervisor.
I mean, wouldn't that be amazing, hey? Like just supervision at your fingertips at any time you want. Anyways, Tom, it has been absolutely amazing to have you as part of the QA. Thank you so much for joining us today.
That's a total pleasure. And yeah, I certainly hope those who watch this enjoy it as much as you and I did.
Tom has been an absolutely amazing asset to EV Assist, and I hope you thoroughly enjoyed this Q&A as much as I did. If you enjoyed what you watched, please drop us a like or a comment. And if you're a clinician watching and you're interested in how AI can be used in your therapy, please reach out to myself or Tom on LinkedIn. We'd be glad to connect. So from my side, Sean at EV Assist, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, thanks and bye.